Peace. I am called Dashawn Is. I'm a truth sayer, a creator, a lover of humanity. I was born at the Air Force Academy back in the day, so I've been basically traveling since I was 2 months old, growing up in the military. What else about me? I didn't grow up in a religious household, so it's given me a lot of freedom to explore what spirituality means to me. So I'm here today to talk to you about the practical use of imagination. It's entitled Because I Said So. Everybody remembers Because I Said So. If you recall, when you're a kid, when a parent or an adult says, because I said so, and in answer to your inquiry, it was gospel. It was the truth. That was all there was to it. And mine came from my mom. And those words were the bane of my existence when I was a kid. But, now I understand it to be truly gospel, because I now understand that imagination creates reality, and what you say to be true is what is true for you. You could be lying to yourself all day, and all of us do that, In the conversation, I think it's something crazy like over 50%, or like once every 5 minutes or 10 minutes a human being is lying in regular conversation. So once we all understand that we're all liars, then you can find your truth in that. You can find your most authentic self in there. And that's a part of what Because I Said So is about. So why am I doing this? I'm doing this because this is what I'm meant to be doing. Throughout my entire life, people have come to me for advice or to be that shoulder to lean on when in distress. And it's not something that I asked for, and I don't necessarily take a lot of credit for that power. I just think that this is who I'm born to be. And so now I'm changing it, sharing it, using it to benefit more people than just a small circle of people that I roll with. And I also think that understanding imagination is not something that we learn in school. This isn't something that we're taught. And I think that it's important that we do know these things, because without it, we're just cogs in a machine that someone else has built, instead of the propagators of our own life quest, right? This is not something that we generally learn at home because our parents aren't taught this. This isn't necessarily a generational gap. This is just a change in time and an evolution of humanity, and people starting to understand more and more the power of thinking and feeling and using their imaginations to create the best lives for themselves. So what we're truly talking about here is the law of attraction. A lot of people saw The Secret when it came out in 2006 and started trying to implement it, and the complaint is that this shit doesn't work. And the truth is it can't work, first of all, if you don't believe in it. But more importantly, there are some more details that are necessary to implement in order to make this work more effectively in your life. And this is a part of the reason why I'm doing this. I've tried it out, I've tested it on myself, and I've also seen it happen in other people's lives, and I want to share with you some practical things. I'm going to tell some stories, I'm going to share my own stories, and I'm going to talk a little bit about science and the Bible and how all those things pertain to the law of attraction and how the law actually operates. So what I want to challenge you to do is to be present as you possibly can be from here on out. Listen to the things that I'm saying, and I want you to take it back within you and put it up against your own life and see how what I'm sharing with you and what you've actually experienced is true. So I'm not looking for followers, and I don't want you to simply believe in me. I'm a skeptic. I only do things because they resonate with me, or I've had an experience with it. So I want you to have your own experience with what I'm sharing with you. So let's do this. Here and now is all we've got. So this is the time to make these changes. Let's do it. So for the people who are uninitiated, the law of attraction, this is like a law of attraction 101. And what it says, what this law means is basically like attracts like. Like is known to like alone, or birds of a feather flock together. Essentially what's being said is what you think about and what you feel is what you attract into your life experience. So obviously if you understand that fully, then you know it behooves you to keep your mind focused on things that make you feel good. Because what we think about and feel in this moment directly correlates to what happens or what we experience in the next moment. So my push is to get people to remember as much as possible to be present, to be happy in this moment as much as you can be. Despite what's going on around you, there's always going to be some life happening around you, and it's always going to shift your focus and shift how you feel. But if you recognize, because you're present, that you're not happy in this moment, then you need to bring yourself back to a center of happiness. And as you do so, it becomes a habit. And this habit begets many gifts, like the things that you want start to occur to you more and more. But on the same token, on the flip side of that, you realize, like, if you're a person who complains every time somebody cuts you off, or, yo, this bitch cussed me out the other day, blah, 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 as soon as you feel it and you say it, you're putting it out into the universe. And once you say it to somebody else, you're taking it out of the universe that is you, putting it into another universe, and then they go tell the story because now they're feeling a way about what you said, and it resonates and it reverberates out all around you. And then everything that comes back to you is all based on the attitude that you initially put out. So I say all that to say the law of attraction is real. I'm going to give you some examples about how I've seen it manifest in other people's lives as well as my own. Let's talk about the Bible a little bit, right? So the Bible, as you may or may not know, talks heavily about the law of attraction. And I think, in my humble opinion, this is what the Bible's about. For example, ask, and whatever ye ask for, if you believe it, you'll receive it. That's not it verbatim, but that's essentially what the Bible's saying. Another thing the Bible says is, I am that I am. I don't think that most people really understand what that means, but I can tell you my interpretation. If you put a comma after the first I am, then you realize that it's a declaration of who you truly are. I am, comma, that I am, says that you are exactly the thing that you think about. So how this relates to the law of attraction, if you are wanting a job, then you need to be the person who already has the job. You need to put yourself in a position and see the world from the perspective of the person who has the job. You are that person who has the job. That means you've already received what you've asked for, as the Bible says, and there shouldn't be any wanting. And if you already have what you're asking for, then there's no space for wanting the thing. There's no space for, well, someday it's going to happen, or I'm trying to get, or I'm working hard at. It means that it is yours now. Now the test becomes, how faithful are you to this truth that you've created for yourself? You have to walk in it in order for it to be what you really want it to be. Now a little bit about the science, which is probably my favorite part. So first of all, we need to talk about quantum mechanics, quantum physics. And if you're not wowed by what I'm about to share with you, then you're not really understanding what I'm saying. So try to keep up. First of all, subatomic particles, the things that make up the fabric of our universe, everything we hear, smell, taste, and touch, are made of these subatomic particles. When they are unobserved, when the human eye is not looking at these particles, they exist in a wave of possibility. And we know this because we put a computer on these things to watch them. But when the human eye looks under a subatomic microscope and sees and looks at a particle, it becomes a particle of experience. When we're not looking, a wave of possibility. When we are looking, a particle of experience. That's wow number one. Let your mind wrap around that for a second. The next thing is that these subatomic particles do exactly what the observer says they will do, 100% of the time. So if you remember science from school, you know that whenever you do an experiment, you have to have a control, and then you have to have the thing that you're experimenting on. And so, you'd have to write a hypothesis about what you think is going to happen in your experiment before you do it. So a scientist is in a lab, and he sees this little particle, and he predicts this thing is going to bounce twice, zigzag, and then dart off the field of view. Writes it down, he looks under a microscope, and guess what? This particle does exactly that. Crazy, right? So now imagine you have to do it again to make sure the experiment is happening correct as you initially think it is. So the scientist does it again and realizes that every time he does the experiment, it happens exactly the same way. These things that make the fabric of the universe, subatomic. So we're talking about the things that make the atoms, that make everything that we experience in our world, do exactly what we say they're going to do 100% of the time. Every scientist who's ever done this from around the world has came up with the same conclusion. So the Bible says, ask and ye shall receive as soon as you ask for it. And quantum mechanics, science, says that when you affect or give a direction to the subatomic world, it basically does exactly what we say it's going to do. We've always been taught that, we can't be in more than place at one time, right? Well, in the quantum world, which is a really crazy and fascinating world, things can be in two places at once. There are labs, apparently, in the United States that you can go into and you can look at a particle. And when you observe it with your eye, it looks like you're looking at two blobs of color. But when they do the math, the weights and measures and all that stuff, we realize that you're actually looking at one thing. It appears to be two, but it's actually one. Now, if these things aren't flabbergasting to you, then again, you're not really understanding what I'm saying. The world that we live in is far crazier, dynamic, and powerful than we have been taught to believe. It shouldn't scare you, it should wow you, but it should mostly excite you, because what I'm trying to explain to you is that you have more power than you think you do. The little problems that you think are plaguing your world, by the end of this, I want you to understand that you have more control over that. In fact, you're the only person and thing in the universe that has control over the things that are happening to you in your life. It's a lot to hold on to, and it's a lot of responsibility. But if you're willing to take the challenge of this responsibility, you can change your life, as I've seen my friends do, and as I am doing as we speak. I'd like to tell you a story about my good friend Kimbo. This is a man who was born in the islands, not to wealth, probably in poverty. He was charged with taking care of his mom when she fell ill. At some point it got so bad that he had to drop out of high school to take care of her full time and keep her healthy. And during that time he sat at her feet and learned everything that he could from her while he had her. Unfortunately for him, she transitioned eventually, and he all of a sudden found himself, orphaned in America, as a teenager. When he was a kid growing up in the islands, he would dream about, having a nice car and, having nice clothes and living in America and doing his thing. And, he probably made the mistake of telling his friends that, to which they said, of course, yeah, right, you ain't gonna do shit. You out here like the rest of us, But now, as a young adult in his late teens, he now has the freedom to roam, to explore, to travel and see what this world is about, So after being out there for a bit, he eventually landed in Atlanta, where he eventually became an event producer and party promoter. And at one time, he had like a 300 venue route where he'd drop his flyers and put up his posters, and he did all this on a bike. He was one of those cats who, like most people coming to America, first generation American hustler, he's out there doing his thing. And that's around the time that I met him. He would hire me to pass out flyers for him. Also during that time, he started what was probably the first, but definitely the best and most well-known open mic event in Atlanta. Before, movies came out and people started doing poetry slams, he was an innovator in the city and put together this thing that gave people a stage to showcase their talents or try it out. And during that time, he was making plans to go over to backpack through Europe and Africa with his best friend, invited me along. So he was like, yo, if you need to make some extra cash, you could be my doorman and the gatekeeper, hold the sign-up list. Now, this sign-up list was coveted. If you guys remember back to the first few seasons of Def Poetry, all the poets from Atlanta either got their start on our stage or, basically sharpened their swords on that stage. And we're also talking about Grammy winners like India Arie, Anthony David, Donnie, Erykah Badu. All these people were on this stage that this guy from the island who had no money and no formal education has created. From this space, throwing parties, we met some other promoters who came in and basically invited us along to join this marketing effort to push this new brand called Truth. If you guys remember the Truth campaign from the early 2000s, it was the one with the body bag commercials. the anti-tobacco campaign. Well, this campaign was the largest anti-tobacco campaign in history. It was youth-led. We were all in our 20s at the time that we started this, and that thing went on to be a national phenomenon. During my tenure as working with this crew, we spoke to 5 million kids face-to-face. We changed the rate of smoking and tobacco use for people for the ages of 12 to 17, 17 to 25. And this is all on the watch and under the helm of this cat Kimbo I'm telling you about, right? This led to further marketing. Basically, from that campaign, him and his partners started a marketing firm called GTM that became industry innovators for 15 years. Award-winning, innovative, everything that you can imagine they put their hands on. So it went from just Truth to then Sprite and Nike and the Verb campaign. They helped create the Greater Than AIDS campaign. And even Current TV that Al Gore launched several years ago. One of our friends designed the original logo. Kimbo was charged with doing launch parties at major cities across the nation, and did such an amazing job with these events that Al Gore doesn't give him a political handshake when he meets him. He gives him a pound and a hug. So Kimbo is the type of person who, hangs out with Madonna for a day, and forgets to pull out a camera and take some selfies, lunches with billionaires, wins awards for the innovative ideas that he has in guerrilla marketing. All of this without a college education in marketing, without, formal high school training. I've seen him transform from a person who's riding a bicycle and trying to chase the pretty girl to owning maybe 3 Range Rovers now in his lifetime. And the thing one of the stories that I remember about him is him telling me that when he was younger, he would envision himself sitting in some cargo shorts and flip-flops driving in his Range Rover. And as he's telling me this, I'm riding shotgun in his Range Rover. We're on our way to Lenox Mall, and he's got some flip-flops and cargo shorts on. What I'm trying to get you guys to understand is that imagining creates reality. The thing that we want, the thing that we figure is true for us, the thing that we go after with gusto and faith, with the knowing that it is ours, cannot not happen. According to the law of attraction, what we think about and what we feel, and that thing, so long as we hold that resonance for a longer duration with more intensity, that thing becomes true. You can look at evidence of this all around ourselves. Look at your own life. Think about the things that you didn't really want to have happen, but you had a negative vibration about this person that you were afraid of at school or something crazy. And eventually that kid came and picked on you. But it's not just because he's a bully and you're a punk. It has to do with your fear. You resonated with that fear. Fear has passion and resonance and vibration. And if you hold on to that fear long enough, the thing that you fear most will come true. Well, obviously the same thing is true about the things that are good in your life. If you can hold on to the good vibration of the thing that you want to have happen, it can't not happen. As evidenced by my brother Kimbo. I think that he's an amazing person. I look to him for, not necessarily to teach me, because we are peers and we all are, none of us is perfect, but I also do truly admire his humanity and his generosity as a human being. And I love that no matter how hard he goes and how many awards he wins or what kind of accolades he gets, he is still always trying to better himself. And that's what we all need. And that's what the practical use of imagination can give to us. Cut that. So the next person I want to give a little background on is my man Fahamu Peku. He's one of the most famous artists in Atlanta at the moment, and I've seen his rise. So when I first met him, he was actually the flyer guy for my friend Kimbo. He would make the flyers for Kimbo's events. Kimbo takes me to his house one day, this cramped little apartment on Peachtree he had with his girlfriend, and because both of them were art students, the shit was packed to the ceiling with art, And I found Mr. Peku to be, a little shy, a little unassuming, kind of quiet, little nerdy, but all around a really cool, good people. And that day he invited me to a group art show he was doing that weekend, and that's when I found out the background about his life. So at the show, I find out that when he was about 3 years old, him and his brother and sisters, basically witnessed their dad in the life of their mom and then turn himself in. Orphaned, they now are shipped off to live with family, relatives, and to his own account, by his own account, it wasn't a very happy childhood. Little neglected, little maybe verbally abused, kind of ignored. So basically he went in, he became an introvert and started drawing and reading volumes of encyclopedias, so that was kind of his escape from this world that he was in. So fast forward to the college years, his dream, he confided in me at the time, because we became fast friends, easy to do, He's like, I really want to be as famous as Picasso, with the caveat, of course, of not dying before recognizing his fame and fortune. Like, he wanted to experience the fame of being a world-renowned, well-known artist. But during that time, especially right after college, as he's trying to get in galleries and get some solo shows, wasn't really popping for him, Fortunately, during the time he was in school, he hung out at the design lab, so he learned graphic design by hanging out with his friends. So eventually, in order to make ends meet, instead of being a total starving artist, him and his friend Salah, DJ Salah in Atlanta for those who don't know, started a marketing firm called Diamond Lounge, where he was basically the head designer. So that kind of got him by, but it didn't stop him from, going after getting in these galleries. He's put together these elaborate packages and, ornate on the outside, goodies on the inside, telling his story. Nothing was working. But in the meantime, he continued to paint and, hone his craft. One day he had the idea of, well, it wasn't the one day, I think this was more gradual, but he started painting himself on the covers of art magazines, all these prestigious art magazines, all the way to like things like Fader and, where, he couldn't get an interview, he couldn't get a write-up in these magazines, so he basically started what would be considered commentary on being a black man in America, and using himself as the guinea pig, as the focal point. He would paint these scenarios and put these headlines and bylines on these magazine covers and basically paint himself as a famous artist. Stage like little photo shoots and then, take the photo and paint it. And at one point, Shirley Franklin was running for mayor of Atlanta, and she charged his design firm with making those little signs that you put in your yard, vote for Mayor Shirley Franklin, and this gave him an idea. So one day he's like, yo, D, tell me what you think about this. He came up with an idea, a sticker campaign essentially, that was as follows. He found a picture of a dude with a jerry curl, no shirt, and a bow tie, with an arrow pointing to this guy saying, not the shit. And then he takes off his little nerd glasses and mean mugging the camera, photographs himself, and the arrow on him says the shit. So the campaign was basically Fahamu Peku is the shit, paid for by the committee to officially make Fahamu Peku the shit. Stickers all over the city, putting them up in magazines, starts tagging them, sending them out online, and he's asking me, so what do you think about this? I'm like, yo, you got to be careful of your language, because some people will take shit as derogatory, blah, blah, blah. But, I was looking out for him, but I was naively not considering the intention behind what he was doing, which was to cause attention, announce that he was out in the world and, creating some stuff, and that, yo, by the way, I'm the shit. So I warned him, like, once you say that you are, you have to become that, and become that he did. Because essentially, it made him known around the city. He still wasn't getting any gallery shows, though, so. During the art walk in Castleberry Hill, which is where our headquarters were, GTM as a marketing firm, and right across the hall from us was the studio, Fahamu Studio. So one day he decided that during art walk in Castleberry Hill, he's going to do some live painting on the sidewalk. I'm the DJ. One of my friends was hanging out. She was being painted, and then some other friends were hanging out. And while we're out on the sidewalk and people walking by, his neighbor across the street and gallery owner Bill comes to check out what his friend's doing, right? Walks over like, Fahamu, what the fuck are you doing? You're a painter? I thought you were a graphic design artist. Like, what the fuck is this? It's like, yeah, man, I graduated from art school. I'm a painter. He's like, I got a gallery across the street. Why the hell haven't we had this conversation? So he's like, do you have any more art I can see? So these guys disappear inside. 10 minutes later, they come back out, shaking hands and making plans about Fahamu's show that he's going to do across the street at the gallery. So here's where we go in. We went all the way in and made a red carpet introductory, like sort of like a red carpet entrance, even though he was just walking across the street. Red carpet, complete with our photographer friends as paparazzi, a 6'4" bodyguard, and a beautiful woman that's some eye candy wearing a I love, a Fahamu Peku is the shit t-shirt. Made this entrance, and that beautiful, dope-ass event became a thing of legend in the city, and that basically launched what is now his career as a famous artist around the world. So he went from, I believe, from Atlanta, one of Bill's fellow gallerists in Washington, I believe, heard about this, so he had a show there. And then he had a show in Dallas, and then one in New York, then Art Basel in Miami. Then he gets called over to South Africa. He just returned from his third show in Paris, which I believe sold out before he got there. I say all this to say, I watched my friend take a dream and a vision and change it into reality by painting himself into fame as an artist. I can't say it any plainer. You have an idea about something that you want to do, protocol is to write it down. Think about it, see it, walk with that. But then the next thing you have to do is embody it. And now for a semi-shy kind of introvert, quiet person like Fahamu, that might have been a difficult thing to begin with. But because he was painting himself as an artist icon, it helped in training his mind to see himself a certain way. And the people around him started to see a certain way. Of course, there were some haters and detractors, and some friends fell off, but the ones who are true, who understand what he's doing for himself and the world he's creating for himself and his family, we rock with him. So now he's happily married, he's got beautiful children, he's my brother. So what can we learn from these two stories? Well, first of all, the first thing is that regardless of what sort of tragedy befalls you in your life, you can still create a positive life for yourself. You can still walk in your dreams. The other thing is that no matter what you're thinking and feeling, good or bad, it's going to occur in your life. It's going to manifest and resonate in your life. And it doesn't matter whether or not you believe in it. If you don't believe in numerology, you don't believe in astrology, you don't believe in gravity, none of that shit matters. These things are actual happenings, and you can, take it for yourself and do some research and have your own experience in order to understand it for yourself. The other thing is I don't believe that these friends of mine at the time of their creation were aware of what they were creating, but they impregnated their minds with this idea, and they gave birth to the idea, and now they're still fully raising this idea. They've taken on the Immaculate Conception idea of Mary from the Bible. Like, this is what they're manifesting. But I have a question for you. What do you think happens when you purposefully manifest experiences in your life? Now I would like to share one of my favorite stories of my own manifestations. I always wanted to be a DJ, and through some of the practice of some of this stuff, I finally became a DJ in my early mid-30s, and I got a residency at a club, restaurant lounge. So on a Wednesday night, I'm doing my set, and I see these two faces walk in that were really familiar to me, right? And there was a couple who had left Atlanta like several years earlier to go study acting, to further their education in acting over in Europe. So the brother, Sa, is who I recognized. We realized we had the same birthday. We became fast friends. And during this time, he was telling me about what he had done over in Amsterdam. While he was there, he did this huge production that was basically citywide, and it made such a large noise in Europe that once he left, he kept getting called back to do speaking engagements and do some small performances of the show. So one day he rolls up on me like, yo, I just got called to a little college town in Switzerland called Lund, and they want me to do a talk and to do some of my show. But since my show has like 30 people, we don't have the money for all of that. I'm wondering if you'll be my DJ and, my band. So, as you can imagine, a person who always wanted to be a DJ, one of my other, bucket list items was to DJ event overseas. Now my friend has presented something for me, so I'm like, hell yeah. And I didn't mention that this is all expenses paid and I'm getting a check. So, you know, I was geeked. So say this happened on the weekend. By Sunday, tragedy strikes. The big test comes in that my computer crashes, completely destroyed. The motherboard is fried. And you know, in this digital age, I'm not carrying crates. All my crates are on my laptop. So I'm like, oh shit, what am I gonna do? My homie is like, yeah, man, we kind of need that because that's a part of the show, obviously. So I was about to go into a dark place and get nervous, but the truth is that I had already been starting to exercise this stuff. This is like 2008, so I've been on that secret shit, and you know, for like the past 2 years. So I'm like, you know what? The God that I serve wouldn't bring me all these things I've been asking for and then yank it away from me at the last minute. This is obviously a test, and because I sincerely believe in how this stuff works, I'm just going to be faithful. This is going down. So boom. You know, as my friend and his wife were witnesses, I went in. I made calls. I tried to find used computers. I tried to clone my shit. I tried to put my information on his laptop and see if that would work. Everything you can imagine short of calling my family and asking for money, because that's something I didn't do, especially my mom. God bless her, but you know, my mom is quick to say no before she says yes to anything, and I just I didn't want to invite anything that I would consider negative energy. I was trying to be positive in this moment. But as the days were ticking by, like things were getting a little bit more and more shaky. So eventually, you know, the Friday is when we're leaving and that day is quickly approaching. And what I realized was, you know what? I need to create a scenario of the wish fulfilled. And we'll talk about this more. But in order to really do, have, and be whatever you want to do, have, and be, you have to think from the end. You have to think from the person who already has that wish fulfilled. So what I did was, I imagined myself sitting on a plane in Hartsfield Airport in Atlanta next to my man Sa, listening to headphones on my new laptop, listening to a beat that I just created. That was a scenario that I had in my mind. So I did this. I went to sleep in that. Throughout the day I would try to imagine that thing as much as possible, but from the place of having it, giving it feeling tones of reality, right? So now it's Thursday and we're getting on a plane the next day, so I'm like, but I can't stop to think that this is not going to happen. Then out of the deep blue, guess who calls? Ma Dukes. My mom calls me and says, I had a dream or a vision or something that told me to give you my last dime so that you can so that you can have the money. I don't know if you need it or not, and I kind of need the money, but something's been compelling me to give you this money. So I tell her what the predicament was, and she was like, well, there it is. Here's the money. Amazing. Thank you, Mom, for that, because it really changed everything. So I call up my boy Sal. I was like, yo, let's go to the let's go to the computer store and get this laptop. So now, you know, we're on the plane. You know what I'm saying? I'm sitting on the plane kind of leaning back, like thinking about how awesome it was that I was able to make this thing manifest, you know? And so then over the loudspeaker we hear an announcement, like we're stuck on this tarmac until the storm passes over. Like, well, damn, okay. Look over at Sa, and now he's talking to the guy sitting next to him. So I reach under the seat and pull out my laptop, open it up, pull out my new headphones, open up GarageBand, and I'm listening to the beat that I made the night before on my brand new laptop. Imagining creates reality. Okay, so rather than just expecting you to believe in the things that I'm saying, because, you know, yeah, your mom would have called you anyway, or, you know, in the case of my friends, they were going in that direction anyway, so it would have happened eventually. I want to give you an exercise that you can take home and do for yourself, so that you can prove the experience to yourself. Prove me wrong, or better yet, prove yourself right. In order for this to work, you have to believe in you, not believe in me. So let me give you a little exercise that you can do to practically use your imagination. So first of all, I want you to get a white piece of paper and a blue pen with blue ink. Now sit down and imagine something that you'd really like to have happen. It could be something simple, and that's what I would recommend, something easy for you to attain. And the next thing you should do is, after you figure out the thing that you want, and be sure that you want it, because again, we're creating magic here. Like, you know, you're creating something, so you want to be sure that this is the thing that you want to have happen to you or come to you, or an experience you wish to have. I want you to write it down in as little or as much detail as you want. Some people have different ideas about this. I'm a detail-oriented person, so I tend to be very detailed, but write down this thing that you want, okay? Now that you have it written down, you've taken it out of the ethos. These are important steps. Idea comes from up here, from God knows where. You take it, you write it down on a piece of paper, and then you look at it every day as much as you can. Study it, memorize it, put it in your brain. Once you have the idea memorized, now you want to start to think of a scenario of what would happen if, or what is happening now that you have, right? So imagine you were asking for a raise at a job and you already have the raise. The scenario would be something like your boss walking up to you and saying, "Great job, congratulations," and shaking your hand. There are verbs to it that you can think about, like a sentence that you should be repeating in your head. And you also want the action of him or her shaking your hand. Don't do it physically. You want to be completely immobile when you're having this imagination. This is just with your eyes closed in your mind's eye. You're imagining the scenario. And imagine reaching out with your hand and shaking the hand of this person. Keep it short, simple, sweet. And the other really, really important part is you must look at the world then from the person experiencing the wish fulfilled. You can't look at yourself like you're looking at you and another person on a movie screen. You have to be in the movie. You have to be the person shaking the hand and feeling the feelings of it actually happening. That's the caveat that The Secret I don't think pushes enough, is that you have to feel to make it real. It's trademark, so don't steal that. But you really have to feel it to make it real. It's not just happy-go-lucky thoughts and you're going to get what you want. You have to think about the thing that you want, but you have to feel it also. You want to get all the tones of reality again, like my friend Neville Goddard says. You want to try to smell what's in the air. You want to try to hear what's going on in the background. You want to feel the fabric. You want to feel the hand of the person whose hand you're shaking. Things of that nature. So once you have the scenario, when you retire at night, you want to not only go, you want to go over the scene a few times as you're starting to retire. Stay completely awake as much as you can, but you want to get yourself to induce that state of almost being asleep. That's when the subconscious mind, which is what we're trying to affect, takes in things. And from the subconscious mind, it will figure out a way to make this thing a reality. But all you have to do is put this thing in there as gospel, as a thing that's actually happening to you. And in so doing, you will go to sleep as the person who has attained the wish. Then you will wake up in the morning as the person who has attained the wish. Throughout the night of sleep, you're dreaming from the person who's attained the wish. You see how this is working? You're working at all different angles into your subconscious mind to make this real. And now throughout your day, as much as you can, take moments for yourself. When you can step away from the kids for a minute, when you can get away from job, work, school, when you're taking a dump, wherever you can get your moment in, sit and think about the scenario and see yourself as a person who's fulfilled this wish. I can't tell you how long it's going to take. You can't give it necessarily a time limit, because if you're doing this right and living presently, then time is not a factor, because you actually are living the thing that you want to have happen, so you shouldn't be even thinking about when it's going to happen. Stay in the faith. Be present and walk as if you are living the life that you wish to live, and watch what happens. And then hit me up. Find me on Facebook, find me here on YouTube, give me a call and let me know what you've manifested, because I guarantee you, money back guarantee. It's easy for me because I'm not charging you shit. But you're going to get your money's worth and then some. Love.